Hello friends, today we are going to examine one of the popular theories of international trade, the Heckscher-Ohlin theory or the factor endowment approach. In our session on traditional trade theories, we have seen that according to the classical school, the basis for international trade is comparative cost difference. But they made little attempt to explain what in fact constitutes the comparative cost difference. The Heckscher-Ohlin model extends the traditional trade theory by analyzing what factors determines comparative cost difference internationally. Welcome to the video. As we said, the Heckscher-Ohlin model explains the reasons behind the comparative cost difference. What factors determine the comparative cost difference internationally? Now let us analyze this model. The first empirical work was provided by Eli Heckscher in the year 1919 when he published a celebrated article, The Effect of Foreign Trade on Distribution of Income. Later, in the year 1933, his own student Bertil Ohlin published his famous book, The Interregional and International Trade. These two works provides the basic outline of the factor endowment approach or the Heckscher-Ohlin theory. We will start with the assumptions of the model. Then we'll explain the concept of factor intensity and factor abundance, and we'll elaborate the theorem in graphical as well as in a verbal manner. We will start from the assumptions of the theory. The first assumption of this theory is that it assumes that there are two countries, two commodities and two factors of production. That is, it's a 2 by 2 by 2 model. That is, it assumes that there are two countries, let us say that is country 1 and country 2. We have two commodities, commodity X and commodity Y, and two factors of production, capital as well as labor. There's a difference as far as the comparative advantage is concerned or the classical theory is concerned. The classical theory rests on the labor theory of value. We have seen that the only factor of production as far as the classical theory is concerned is labor. But here in the Heckscher-Ohlin model, we are explaining the case, or it is examining the case of two factors of production, namely capital and labor. So this is the first assumption. It's a 2 by 2 by 2 model. Two countries, country 1 and country 2, two commodities, commodity X and commodity Y, and two factors of production, capital as well as labor. This is the first assumption of the model, which is a core assumption as well. The second assumption is that it assumes that there is the presence of constant returns to scale. That is, if we increase capital and labor in a given proportion, output will increase in the same proportion, which is the basic premise of the constant return to scale. And the third assumption is that as far as two commodities, commodity X and Y, commodity Y is assumed to be a capital intensive commodity. On the other hand, commodity X is treated as a labor intensive commodity. So out of these two commodities, one commodity is treated as a labor intensive commodities, the other commodity is treated as a capital intensive commodities. And the fourth assumption is that there is the presence of same technology. That means both countries, we have country 1 as well as country 2, both countries are assumed to have same technology as far as production is concerned. Countries are placed on same footings as far as technology is concerned. This is the fourth assumption. The fifth assumption is that the taste of the consumers in both the countries are same or similar, and it can be expressed as a common indifference curve. So tastes are similar as far as two countries are concerned, and there is the assumptions as far as factor mobility is concerned. What is the assumption as far as factor mobility? The factors are assumed to be mobile only within the country. There is no international mobility of the factors of production. That is, factors are mobile only internally. There is only internal mobility of factors of production. There is no external mobility. Factors, capital and labor cannot move outside. Now, this is the sixth assumption. And the seventh assumption is that there is the assumption of perfect competition. Perfect competition in both product as well as factor market. We have two products, commodity X and commodity Y. We have two factors of production, capital and labor. Both these market, that is market for commodities, market for factors of production, are assumed to prevail the perfect competition. It's a perfectly competitive market in the sense that as far as product market is concerned, the buyers or sellers, as far as the factor market is concerned, the suppliers of capital as well as the users of the capital cannot influence the market price with their individual action. That's the seventh assumption. The eighth assumption is that there is no disturbances of international trade in the sense that there is no tariff and there is no non-tariff barriers and other transportation costs. There is no transportation cost, we don't have any tariff, we don't have any NTBs, and trade is assumed to be free trade. There is there is absence of any kind of restrictions as far as international trade is concerned. We have the eighth assumption. And the ninth assumption is that there is no complete specialization as far as countries are concerned. There is no complete specialization. Means both countries will produce, there is no complete specialization, to be clarified. Both countries will produce both commodities even after the free trade. We have the ninth assumption. And the 10th assumption is that initially, at least initially, both countries do have a balanced trade. Balanced trade is the value of export is equal to the value of import. Now these are the assumptions as far as this model is concerned. So the 11th and the last assumption as far as this model is concerned is that there is the presence of full employment. That is, factors of production as in both the countries, that is capital and labor in both countries, are assumed to be having full employment. There are no unemployed resources as far as country 1 and country 2 are concerned. So these are the assumptions of the model. The assumptions in the Heckscher-Ohlin model are very important because most of the theoretical development in international trade after the Heckscher-Ohlin theory was based on the relaxing of some of the assumptions, and we will see the theory. Now once more, the main assumption of the model, this is a 2 by 2 by 2 model. That is, it assumes that there are two countries, two commodities and two factors of production. Countries are country 1 and country 2. Factors of production are capital and labor. Two commodities are commodity X and commodity Y as far as the first assumption is concerned. It assumes that there is a presence of constant return to scale. The third assumption is that out of two commodities, commodity X is treated as a labor intensive commodity, commodity Y is treated as a capital intensive commodity. Both countries are assumed to be having same technology as far as production is concerned. We will relax most of these assumptions, and there are theories that argues that there are differences across technologies and there is a delay in the diffusion of technologies. And we have the technological gap model, we have the product cycle theory that will be examined in the coming video. So the fourth assumption is that the countries are having the same technology in production. The taste and preferences of the consumers in the two countries are assumed to be same, and they can be represented as a common indifference curve. Factors of production are mobile only within the country. There is no international mobility of the factors of production. The market for commodities as well as market for factors of production are assumed to prevail perfect competition, so that there is no individual buyers or sellers or suppliers or users can influence the market price. We have free trade in the sense that there is absence of tariff, non-tariff barriers, and even there is absence of transportation costs. There is incomplete specialization. That is, even after free trade, countries will continue to produce both commodities. To start with, we have a balanced trade in the sense that the value of export is equal to the value of import in both the countries, and the final assumption of the model is that the market both countries are assumed to be having full employment. There are no unemployed resources as far as country 1 and country 2 is concerned. So these are the assumption of the Heckscher-Ohlin model. Now we will clarify the meaning of two concepts, namely factor intensity and factor abundance, because the Heckscher-Ohlin theory is explained in terms of the two words. But so what is the meaning of factor intensity? What is the meaning of factor abundance? Now let us analyze these concepts. Factor intensity and factor abundance. Now let us clarify these two concepts. What is the meaning of factor intensity? What is the meaning of factor abundance as far as Heckscher-Ohlin theory is concerned? We start from the factor intensity. In Heckscher-Ohlin model, we have two factors, capital and labor. Factor intensity is measured by using capital labor ratio, K by L ratio. That is the amount of capital employed with per 1 unit of labor, or the quantity of capital employed per unit of labor. We call it as capital per worker as well. So it is measured on the basis of capital labor ratio. A commodity will be capital intensive if capital labor ratio of that commodity is higher compared to that of the other commodity. And we have a two commodity model as far as Heckscher-Ohlin model, Heckscher-Ohlin theory is concerned. So it is assumed that Y is capital intensive, commodity X is labor intensive. That means that capital labor ratio required for the production of commodity Y is higher than that of commodity X. And for example, let us say that if for the production of commodity Y, 2 units of capital is employed with 2 units of labor, capital labor ratio will be equal to 1. On the other hand, let us say that 4 unit of along with the 1 unit of capital is employed with the 4 unit of labor as far as production of X is concerned, capital labor ratio will be around 0.25. That is, it is argued that, or it is assumed that capital labor ratio required for the production of commodity Y is higher. We have seen that assumption as well. Commodities Y is treated as a capital intensive commodity. So capital labor ratio is higher as far as commodity Y is concerned. Should be remembered that we are not talking about the absolute quantity of capital and labor, total amount of capital labor. No, we are dealing with amount of capital employed with 1 unit of labor. That's the implication of capital labor ratio. So that's how factor intensity is measured in the Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Now let us focus on factor abundance. There are two ways through which factor abundance can be measured in the Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Two methods through which, and basically it is treated as a relative concept. Means factor abundance is treated in relative terms, and we have two definitions associated with. We have one is the physical definition, or sometimes called the physical criterion. The second method is we have the price criterion or price definition. So factor abundance is defined either on the basis of physical definition or on the basis of the price definition. On the basis of physical definition, here we treat the total quantity of capital and labor. Let us say that it is TK by TL. That is, it is represented as a ratio. Total quantity of capital divided by total quantity of labor. If this ratio is higher, then country concerned is capital abundant, capital rich. If this ratio is smaller, country concerned is labor abundant or labor rich. That's far as physical criterion or physical definition is concerned. Here we treat total quantity or total amount of capital and labor. And we will calculate the ratio of both. Now, price definition talks about the rental price of capital and labor. The price that is paid to the factors of production, capital and labor. So here the equation is Pk by Pl. That is price of capital divided by the price of labor. And if a country is capital abundant, this Pk by Pl will be smaller, because in a capital abundant country, price of capital being the abundant factor will be small as well. So it is basically used. So in this equation, so factor abundance is measured on the basis of two criterion. The physical criterion that analyzes the physical quantity of labor and capital, the price criterion that analyzes the rental price of capital and labor. Now we have an important assumption. It is assumed that Tk by Tl is higher and Pk by Pl is smaller in country 2. In other words, country 2 is treated as a capital rich, capital abundant country, and country 1 is treated as a labor rich, labor abundant country. So already we have clarified the meaning of factor intensity as well as factor abundance. When you have two countries, country 1 which is a labor abundant country, country 2 which is a capital abundant country, country 1 can produce more of commodity X because commodity X is treated as a labor intensive commodity. Country 2, it can produce more of commodity Y because commodity Y is treated as a capital intensive commodities. Then the production possibility curve or production possibility frontier of both the countries will have a unique shape. Let us analyze the shape of the production possibility curves of these two countries. We have the PPC. Here we will measure the commodity X, here we will measure the commodity Y. Commodity X is an L good or a labor intensive commodity, commodity Y is a K good or a capital intensive commodity. Then the production possibility curve of country 1. We have two countries, production possibility curve of country 1 will be something look like this. Why? Because country 1 which is, this is that of the country 1. Country 1 which is a labor abundant country can now produce more of commodity X because commodity X is a labor intensive good. And similarly that of country 2 we will have a production possibility curve of country 2 will be look something like this. This will be that of country 2. So the PPC or production possibility curve or production possibility frontier of the two countries will have a unique shape because these two countries are having different kind of endowment, different kind of factor supplies. One country is labor abundant, this country can produce more of commodity X. That's why we have country 1 whose production possibility curve is a relatively flatter curve and it is biased towards the horizontal axis. We have the production possibility curve of country 2 which is more biased towards the vertical axis. Now, having clarified the meaning of factor intensity and factor abundance and having explained various assumptions of this model, now we reach in a position where we can state the Heckscher-Ohlin theory. Now let us explain the Heckscher-Ohlin model. The classical theory have already stated that the reasons behind international trade is comparative cost difference. At the very onset, we saw that those theories didn't explain the reasons behind the comparative cost difference. And the Heckscher-Ohlin theory states that the comparative cost difference across countries is due to two facts or two fundamental propositions. One is that countries differ in their factor endowments. Countries differ in their factor endowments. The second aspect is that commodities differ in their factor intensities. Two facts as far as the model is concerned. One, countries differ in their factor endowments. Means that some countries are blessed with a lot of labor endowment. We call these countries as labor rich countries, labor abundant countries, sometimes even labor surplus countries. On the other hand, some countries are blessed with a lot of capital endowment. We call these countries as capital rich countries, capital abundant countries, capital surplus countries. So that is as far as countries are concerned. There is a difference between factor endowments of different countries are concerned. Some are blessed with a lot of labor endowment, some others are blessed with a lot of capital endowment. And we have commodities. Commodities with their very nature require different kind of factor requirements, factor intensities. Some commodities with their very nature require a labor intensive production process. Some other commodities require a capital intensive production process. That means that if there is a difference in the intensity as far as commodities are concerned, different commodities require different kinds of intensive production process. So given these two facts, the Heckscher-Ohlin theorem states that a country tends to specialize in the production and export of those commodities that intensively utilizes the factor with which the country is relatively well endowed. What is this theory? A country will specialize in the production and export of those commodities. Which commodities? Those commodities who intensively utilizes the factor with which the country is relatively well endowed. It means that a labor abundant country tend to specialize in the production of labor intensive commodities. A capital abundant country tend to specialize on capital intensive commodities. That means if your country is a labor abundant country, you tend to produce a labor intensive commodities. If your country is capital abundant country, you tend to produce capital intensive commodities. We have already seen that out of the two countries, country 1 and country 2, we assume that country 1 is a labor abundant country. Country 2 is a capital abundant country. Now we can even clarify the Heckscher-Ohlin theorem in our own words, in the sense that we have the country 1 which is a labor abundant country, and this labor abundant country, country 1 will specialize in the production of X. Why X? Because X is a labor intensive commodity, and country 2 will specialize in the production of commodity Y, because commodity Y is a capital intensive commodities. We have two countries, country 1 and country 2. Country 1, which is a labor abundant country, will specialize in the production of commodity X, because commodity X is an L good, is a labor intensive commodity. Country 2 will specialize in the production of K wood, which is commodity Y. Now base question is why? What tends to be the factor behind this specialization? The Heckscher-Ohlin theorem argues that once a factor is abundant, that factor will be cheap as well. That is, in country 1, since labor is abundant, labor will be a cheap factor, is a less expensive factor. On the other hand, as far as country 2 is concerned, since it is a capital abundant country, capital rich country, capital is an abundant factor, the rental price for capital will be small as well. So producers will always have a tendency to specialize in the production of those commodities whose production cost is small. They always want to use less expensive factor. They always want to use the cheap factor. So obviously, as a result of such a kind of specialization, country 1 will specialize in the production of commodity X, and country 2 will specialize in the production of commodity Y. Because country 1 is a labor rich country, country 2 is a capital rich country, commodity X is a labor intensive commodity, commodity Y is a capital intensive commodity. So at least we have find out reasons behind the comparative cost difference. Let us analyze this aspect in a bit detail. Okay, we have the comparative cost difference, which is, according to the traditional theory, the basis for trade is comparative cost difference. This comparative cost difference arises due to the comparative price difference. And this comparative price difference emerges as a result of differences in the factor endowments or factor supplies. So we do have the basis for trade. We have the basis for trade in the sense that we found out what are the reasons behind the comparative cost difference of these countries. Ultimately, we end up with the factor endowment. That is why this theory, the Heckscher-Ohlin theory, is also known as factor endowment theory. It's also known as factor proportion theory. So, the basic reason behind international trade is comparative cost difference. This comparative cost difference arises due to different prices in different countries. Why there are different prices? It is because countries do have different kinds of factor endowment. Some countries are labor rich countries, some countries are capital rich countries, some commodities are labor intensive commodities, some commodities are capital intensive commodities, and according to the Heckscher-Ohlin theorem, a country tends to specialize in the production and export of those commodities which intensively utilizes country's abundant factor. So, capital abundant country will specialize in the production and export of capital intensive goods. Labor abundant country will specialize in the production and export of labor intensive goods. Now, to analyze or to have a more deeper kind of an analysis, we will examine the Heckscher-Ohlin model using a diagram as well. So, we have a diagrammatic exposition of the Heckscher-Ohlin model as well. Now, we have already seen the shape of the production possibility curve of both countries. We have the production possibility curve of country 1, which is more biased towards the production of commodity X. Commodity X is a labor intensive commodity. We have the PPC, production possibility curve of country 2, which is more biased towards those commodity, which is commodity Y. Commodity Y is capital intensive commodities. Now let us explore this theorem. Initially, the production point of country 1, labor rich country, labor abundant country, is A. This is an autarky point where we don't have any trade. So the autarky production point of country 1 is point A. Country 1 produces at point A and country 2 produces at A dash in their production possibility curve. Both the welfare of the both countries is represented using a common indifference curve IC1. Why a common indifference curve? We have seen from the assumption that the taste and preferences of the both countries are the same. So we can represent the taste and preferences of both countries using a common indifference curve. So welfare is represented by the IC1. Production point is A and A dash. A for country 1 and A dash for country 2. Now let us analyze that. After the free trade, we have a free trade and we do have a specialization on the basis of Heckscher-Ohlin prediction. When you have specialization, country 1 move from A to point B. That is, country 1, which is a labor rich country, will now produce more of commodity X. Country 1 is a labor abundant country, commodity X is a labor intensive commodity. That's why country 1 now will produce at point B more of commodity X, which is a labor intensive commodity. Country 2 will move from point A dash to point B dash. Country 2 will move from point A dash to point B dash. Country 1 will move from point A to point B. When country 2 moves from A dash to B dash, it produces more of commodity Y, because country 2 is a capital rich country, commodity Y is a capital intensive commodity as well. Now country 1 will be having a lot of commodity X, a smaller quantity of commodity Y as well, because there is no complete specialization assumption. We saw that there is no complete specialization. Even after free trade, both countries will produce both commodities. So country 1 will be having a lot of commodity X, a lesser quantity of commodity Y. Country 2 will be having a lot of commodity Y, lesser quantity of commodity X. Now we have a possibility of exchange. Country 1 will exchange commodity X to country 2 and country 2 will export commodity Y to country 1. When there is an exchange, let us assume that country 1 exchanges this much quantity of commodity X in return for this much quantity of commodity Y, and country 2 exports this much quantity of commodity Y in return for this much quantity of commodity X. both countries will end up in a new consumption point which is on a higher indifference curve, E equals E dash. It is on IC2. IC2 is on a higher indifference curve, which means that the welfare of representative citizens of both the countries might have gone up when there is specialization on the basis of Heckscher-Ohlin prediction. So we have seen the basic premise of the model, which says that countries tend to specialize in the production and export of those commodities which is intensive to that factor. Now, an important aspect is that whether the arguments of the Heckscher-Ohlin predictions are actually valid in the real world. We have a number of empirical studies, most notably that of Leon-Diff, which is called the Leon-Diff paradox. And we have another aspect called factor intensity reversal. Both are dealing with the empirical issues or the empirical test of the Heckscher-Ohlin model, which will be analyzed in the next video. Hope that this video is useful to you. You can always visit our blog www.skpeco.blogspot.in. So until we meet next time, stay safe, happy learning. Thank you.